Well, hey friends, it's me, Pastor Doug, with another word of encouragement for the day for today, Monday, March 14th. And this week, we're continuing our I Still Am series, where we've been exploring the 7 I Am statements that Jesus makes in the Gospel of John. 2 weeks ago, we looked at the idea that Jesus said that he is the bread of life. And then last week, we looked at John chapter 8, where Jesus describes himself as the light of the world. This week, we're specifically looking at John chapter 10, where Jesus described himself as the gate or the door. And specifically, we're looking at that idea with the understanding that Jesus was extending an invitation. A door is sort of a way to gain access to something, right? The door is how we get in somewhere, into a home, into a business, into the bathroom. That's how we get inside as we go through the door. And so Jesus was extending an invitation to people who had been marginalized and pushed aside. Well, today's passage comes from Luke chapter 5, verses 12 and 13. And in it, we see Jesus acting as the portal, as the way in for people who were outside. Let me read the story to you. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered in leprosy. Covered in leprosy, scripture says. When he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground and he begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Now, let me just pause there for a minute. Now, leprosy was kind of a generic term used to describe all sorts of different skin diseases. But according to Jewish custom and Jewish law, if you had leprosy, if you had a persistent skin disease that didn't clear up, it was more than a rash, it was actually a disease, then you were an outcast. I mean, you were literally supposed to live outside of the city, outside of the town or village, outside of the camp, and you were not really permitted to come into the town. If you did, or if you were around other people, you had to yell out, "I'm unclean, I'm unclean." That way other people could avoid you. And so this man is coming to Jesus, and this guy, we don't know how long he had had leprosy. I don't know if this was a month or a year or 10 years, but for a significant amount of time, he had been considered by everyone around him to be unclean. He had been shunned. He had been pushed to the outside, marginalized outside of the community. I can't imagine how difficult that experience must have been for this man. So not only is he dealing with a physical set of situations, but he's also dealing with a complex set of social and relational and personal issues as a result of this leprosy as well. Listen to what happens. He comes to Jesus, and then in verse 13 it says this: Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," Jesus said, "be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him. I love this. Not only does Jesus heal this man physically, which would have been, incredible, but he also sort of restores this man relationally. I don't know how long it had been since anyone had touched this man, shaken his hand, given him a hug, touched him at all, because again, people would have kept their distance from someone with leprosy. And so this guy hadn't been, had a physical touch with another human being for who knows how long. And the very first thing that Jesus does is he reaches out and he touches the man. And what I love about that is it just shows us the compassionate heart of Jesus, that Jesus functions as a doorway where he's inviting people to come into relationship with him and relationship to the Father. He says, you enter through me, and it's an open door. It's an invitation to enter into relationship with God the Father through the person and the sacrifice and the resurrection of Jesus himself. I love what this story tells us about the heart of this Jesus that we follow. So friends, be encouraged in that today, and we'll see you tomorrow.